Welcome to the Innovation Brief by IdeaScale, the show that helps you, really stay on top of the latest in innovation leadership. We know you're busy, so we get right to the point today. We're going to explore something really interesting. What if I told you that you could really learn almost everything you need to know from your customers from just a handful of conversations?
Well, that might sound like a bit of a stretch.
It does.
But research has actually shown that talking to as few as 6 or even up to 12 of the right people can reveal something like 80% of what they need and what they want.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So I imagine, choosing the right people to talk to is probably the most important thing here.
It really is, and that's where customer personas come in. And what we're talking about with personas is a way of representing different types of users in your customer base. You might think about it as, the end user or the supervisor or even the buyer, all these different types of people that interact with your product in different ways.
Right. So you would tailor your questions to figure out what each of those specific groups needs and, where their pain points are.
Exactly. And the cool thing is you might even find there are some unexpected personas that you didn't even know about that you might learn about just through these interviews.
So we've got our personas, we've got our group of people. What are some of the things we can do to get the most out of these conversations?
Well, I think the most important thing is asking the right questions. And when I say the right questions, I mean open-ended questions. Questions that encourage your interviewees to really tell stories and share their experiences. You'll be amazed by what you can learn just by letting people talk.
Yeah. I've always heard about the 5 whys technique.
Absolutely. And, a good example of the 5 whys is, imagine a customer is asking for a very specific feature in your software by repeatedly asking them, why? 5 times, why do you need that feature? You might discover the underlying need that they're expressing is actually something completely different.
That's so interesting. It's almost like peeling back the layers of an onion.
It is. To get to the core of the issue. So we're actively listening. We're asking open-ended questions. We're probing a little bit deeper. Is there anything else that we should be doing or maybe not doing?
Don't be afraid to go off on tangents. Sometimes the most valuable insights you get will come from an unexpected, turn in the conversation. And if you're too rigidly sticking to your questionnaire, you might miss those little moments.
So it's more about fostering a natural conversation
Absolutely.
and less about, checking off boxes on a survey.
Exactly.
But once we have all of this, rich qualitative data, how do we actually make sense of it?
Well, that's where, we move from sort of the art of conversation to the analysis of it. And there are a lot of different techniques you can use. One of the most popular is called affinity mapping, and it's basically just a fancy way of saying grouping similar ideas and observations together.
Okay, so instead of just a jumble of notes, you're actually creating a visual map of the main takeaways of these conversations.
Exactly. And you start to see patterns emerge. You start to see, oh, wow, 3 or 4 of the people we talked to brought up the same pain point. And then you realize, aha, this is something that we really need to focus on.
So what happens when we have multiple personas that we need to interview? Does that mean we're, doing hundreds and hundreds of interviews?
Well, it could mean that you're doing a lot of interviews, but the nice thing about this is that it's flexible. You might start by focusing on your most important persona. Maybe that's the end user, or maybe it's the buyer. And you do a few interviews with them and you start to see patterns. And then, you can always do more later, but you don't necessarily have to do all of them up front.
So you can be strategic about who you talk to and when.
Exactly.
So we're not just reacting to what customers need right now. We're thinking ahead to the future and what they might need down the line.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key takeaways here is that customer interviews are not a one-time thing. It should be an ongoing practice. As your business grows and evolves, your customers are going to grow and evolve with it, and their needs are going to change. So it's really important to have a constant feedback loop to make sure that you're staying ahead of the curve.
And how do we, take all of these valuable insights that we're learning and actually turn them into something that, is tangible?
That's where IdeaScale comes in. IdeaScale is a platform that can help you capture, analyze, and really act on all of those golden nuggets of customer feedback that you're gathering.
Okay, so it's more than just, a place to store information. It's actually a tool to help us, put those insights into action.
Exactly. And, one of the things that IdeaScale really excels at is helping you turn your work team into innovators. Giving them the tools that they need to contribute to the innovation process and make sure that you're creating solutions that really resonate with your customers.
This has been a really insightful conversation, and I'm really excited to dig a little bit deeper into how IdeaScale can help us with this process. But before we do that, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back to continue our deep dive into customer-driven innovation.
One thing that we often forget about is how much this customer insight stuff helps not just our products, but our marketing too.
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, when you know so much about your customer, it's got to really change how you talk to them.
It really does. I mean, just imagine if you really understand, what their pain points are, what they're hoping for, and even, the language that they use. You can really target your marketing message to them. And you're not just guessing anymore. You're actually talking to their needs and their desires.
Yeah, it's way more powerful than just sending out a generic message to everyone.
Right.
You can actually make it feel personalized to each, group of customers.
Absolutely. And when you use a platform like IdeaScale to keep track of all of this stuff, you're basically creating, a single source of truth that all of your teams, whether it's product development or marketing, can use. And that can be a real game changer for a company.
Right. So you're actually breaking down those walls between departments and you're creating, a customer-centric culture across the entire organization.
That's the idea.
So I'm curious, how does IdeaScale actually help teams take all of this raw information and turn it into something that they can use?
Well, IdeaScale gives you a whole framework for managing the entire innovation lifecycle. It's not just about collecting feedback, it's about understanding it and then figuring out what's most important and then actually doing something with it.
So it's not just a database, it's actually like an engine.
Exactly. And one of the things that IdeaScale is really good at is helping teams, take those insights and turn them into action. And it really helps turn your team into innovators by giving them the tools that they need to contribute to the innovation process.
Can you give me an example of how that might work in practice?
Sure. Let's say you're a software company and you've done a bunch of customer interviews. You can upload all the transcripts from those interviews into IdeaScale and then use the tools that are built into the platform to figure out, what are the main themes, what are people talking about, and maybe you discover that, a lot of users are having trouble with a particular feature because it's just too complicated.
Okay, so you've identified the problem. Now what?
Well, now you can use IdeaScale to get ideas from your team about how to simplify that feature. Maybe you run an idea challenge where everyone can submit their ideas, vote on them, and give each other feedback. It's a really great way to get everyone involved in the innovation process.
So you're not just relying on a few people at the top to come up with solutions, you're getting input from everybody.
That's right. And with IdeaScale, you can actually track the progress of each idea from the moment it's submitted all the way through to implementation so everyone knows what's going on and the best ideas get the attention that they deserve.
It sounds like IdeaScale gives you this framework that helps you bridge the gap between what your customers are telling you and actually making changes to your product.
And that's what sets IdeaScale apart. It's not just a software platform. It's really a way of thinking that helps organizations turn their teams into innovators.
So for people out there who maybe haven't used IdeaScale before, what makes it different from all the other innovation management platforms?
There are a couple things. First of all, it's really easy to use even if you're not, super tech savvy. The interface is very intuitive.
So it's not hard to integrate it into your existing workflow.
Not at all. And secondly, IdeaScale has all the features you need in one platform, from collecting ideas and analyzing them to managing projects and generating reports. It's really a one-stop shop for all your innovation needs.
So it really sounds like a huge advantage for companies that are trying to build a strong innovation culture. What about, apart from all the features, is there anything else that makes IdeaScale special?
Well, IdeaScale has been around for a long time, and it has thousands of happy customers all over the world. It's used by everyone from Fortune 500 companies to nonprofits and government agencies. It's a really versatile platform that can help any organization unlock its innovation potential.
So what advice would you give to leaders who are trying to encourage their teams to be more innovative?
Well, I think the most important thing is to create a culture where people feel comfortable taking risks and sharing their ideas. And part of that is making sure that everyone understands the big picture. What are the goals of the organization? Where are we trying to go?
So it's not just about saying, hey, let's be more innovative. It's about giving people a roadmap and a clear set of objectives.
Exactly. And leaders also need to be willing to accept failure as part of the process. Innovation is messy. It's not always going to be pretty. But that's okay, as long as we learn from our mistakes.
So it's about creating a safe environment where people feel like they can experiment and try new things without fear of being punished if they don't succeed.
That's exactly right. And last but not least, leaders need to lead by example. If you want your team to be innovative, you need to show them that you're willing to be innovative yourself.
So it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk.
Exactly. When leaders are actively involved in the innovation process, it sends a clear message to the rest of the team that this is something that we take seriously.
This has been a really great conversation, but unfortunately we're just about out of time. Before we wrap up, I've been wondering about something. What about those times when customer feedback might actually lead you in the wrong direction? I mean, how do you balance really listening to your customers with, staying true to your vision?
That's a really great question. You're right. You can't just take every piece of feedback you get and run with it. Sometimes customers, they don't always know what's best for them. Or maybe they're asking for something that's just not technically possible.
So it's not about just doing whatever the customer says.
Exactly. You have to use your judgment and your expertise to figure out which feedback is actually valuable and which feedback is, maybe not so much. It's really about finding that sweet spot between listening to your customers and trusting your gut.
So it sounds like having a good innovation process can help with that.
Yeah.
A way to filter out the noise and figure out which ideas are worth pursuing.
Absolutely. And that's where a platform like IdeaScale can be really helpful. It gives you a framework for evaluating ideas and making sure that you're focusing on the things that are actually going to move the needle for your business.
This has been a really great conversation. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about the importance of customer interviews and personas and, how to use IdeaScale to turn those insights into action. Any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
The one thing I would say is that innovation is a journey. It's not a destination. It's about creating a culture where people are constantly learning and experimenting and trying new things. And when you use customer insights to guide that journey, you're much more likely to end up in a place where you want to be.
That's a great point. It's about fostering that growth mindset and always looking for ways to improve. So for those listening who are ready to take their innovation efforts to the next level, what should they do?
Go to IdeaScale.com and sign up for a free trial. See for yourself how easy it is to use the platform to gather feedback, analyze it, and then actually do something with it.
That's a great call to action. And don't forget to tune in on Tuesdays and Fridays for new episodes of the Innovation Brief, where we'll continue to explore the latest trends and strategies in the world of innovation leadership. Also, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a comment below. We love hearing from you.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep innovating.